The morning fog clung to the earth like a living thing, thick and unyielding, swallowing shapes, swallowing sound. From the mist emerged the outline of a battlefield that seemed impossible to navigate, trenches hidden, ridges obscured, shadows dancing with every ripple of light. The fighters moved cautiously, hearts pounding, muscles tense, senses stretched to their limit. Each step, each movement felt like a gamble, the air itself whispering caution. This was no ordinary fight. It was a contest of patience, perception, and the raw will to survive.
It was June 1944, the summer of the Allied invasion of Normandy. As dawn broke over the bocage countryside, a thick gray fog clung stubbornly to the low-lying fields, masking the rolling hedgerows and narrow lanes that would become the battlefield for one of the most intense armored duels of the Second World War. The American forces, having landed just weeks earlier on the beaches of Utah and Omaha, were pushing inland with cautious optimism. But the Germans had fortified the region with the remnants of the Wehrmacht's armored divisions, including the formidable Panther tanks, which dominated open terrain with their long-range 75mm KWK-42 guns. Visibility was poor, and the combination of hedgerows, morning mist, and strategic knowledge gave the defenders a fleeting advantage, at least in theory. American Sherman tank crews had quickly learned that the traditional method of tank warfare, open-field engagements with long-range targeting, was not viable in the dense bocage. Each hedge was a potential kill zone, each sunken lane a trap. Commanders emphasized close coordination between armor and infantry, leveraging the mobility and numerical advantage of Shermans rather than attempting head-on confrontations with the Panthers. This approach required discipline, patience, and a new type of situational awareness that many tank crews had never experienced in training back in the United States. The Shermans themselves were not superior to the Panthers in terms of raw firepower. A Panther could destroy a Sherman at ranges of over 1,000 meters with a single shot to the frontal armor. Yet the Sherman was lighter, faster to maneuver in the uneven terrain of Normandy, and crucially equipped with reliable radios, allowing coordinated movement across units. The Sherman's 75mm M3 gun, though less powerful, was more than capable at close range, especially when combined with the fog and the hedgerow ambushes that became standard in the early campaigns. As the sun struggled to pierce the morning mist, tank commanders issued orders that would exploit these environmental advantages. Smoke shells were loaded to obscure movement, and reconnaissance teams were deployed to identify Panther positions hidden in the folds of the bocage. The American doctrine emphasized using cover, concealment, and surprise, exactly the kind of warfare that fog favored. Visibility often limited line of sight to less than 200 meters, rendering the Panthers' long-range advantage almost irrelevant in many of these engagements. Within this environment, Sherman crews began to test innovative maneuvers. Tanks would advance in short bursts, hugging hedgerows, while infantry provided overwatch and spotted German positions. Coordinated attacks with artillery smoke allowed Shermans to appear suddenly from the mist, delivering devastating close-range fire into the side and rear armor of Panthers. Even one well-timed flank shot could neutralize a Panther's threat before it could react. The fog was not just weather, it became a tactical weapon. Commanders learned to manipulate it, move through it, and force the enemy to engage on terms that favored numbers, speed, and coordination over raw firepower. Despite the danger, American crews were motivated. The Normandy terrain tested every skill they had learned in training. Every hedgerow, sunken lane, and patch of fog became a classroom in tactical adaptation. Some Shermans were lost to hidden anti-tank positions, but the successes of crews who could navigate the fog and coordinate attacks inspired a growing understanding. Technology alone does not win battles. Skill, situational awareness, and timing are equally decisive. In the early days of the Normandy campaign, several engagements between Shermans and Panthers demonstrated this principle with remarkable clarity. Panthers, assuming that visibility would allow them to pick off Shermans at a distance, were often caught unprepared when American crews used the fog to approach unseen, striking from blind spots. Side shots and rear shots, where Panther armor was thinner, became the norm, executed with deadly precision. Smoke shells, hedgerow cover, and coordinated infantry spotting transformed the battlefield into a dynamic, unpredictable environment where the theoretically superior Panther could be neutralized. The interplay of fog, terrain, and tactics set the stage for some of the most innovative armored operations of the war. Sherman crews developed new ways to coordinate under limited visibility, to advance silently through mist-covered lanes, and to capitalize on the weaknesses of the Panther in the environment Normandy provided. They were learning the art of jungle-style armored ambush, though in a European setting, close range, concealed, and reliant on timing rather than sheer firepower. By mid-morning, reconnaissance reported multiple Panther positions along the narrow lanes of the hedgerow fields. Sherman crews were positioned in careful formation, using the fog to mask their advance. Each hedgerow was treated as a potential threat or opportunity. Every dip and rise in terrain became a tactical consideration. The combination of weather, terrain, and careful planning allowed small Shermans to outmaneuver what otherwise would have been devastating Panther counterattacks. This was the crucible of learning, the place where American tank crews truly adapted to the unique challenges of Normandy's hedgerow country. As the fog slowly lifted later in the morning, the lessons of the early hours became clear. Shermans, leveraging mobility, teamwork, and the concealment offered by fog, had been able to neutralize Panthers that had been positioned for long-range engagements. Casualty rates remained high, but these small victories demonstrated the effectiveness of American adaptation. What was theoretical in training had become reality in combat. Fog, once a simple meteorological condition, had become a tactical asset. And the Sherman, though technically inferior in raw firepower, proved itself lethal when employed intelligently.
As the weeks of June unfolded, the lessons of the Normandy bocage became etched into the minds of American tank crews. The Shermans, once seen as technically inferior, had proven their worth through ingenuity, coordination, and disciplined adaptation to the foggy, hedge-lined terrain. Each successful ambush reinforced the notion that environment, strategy, and teamwork could offset raw firepower. Tank commanders reviewed every engagement, analyzing what had gone right and what could be improved, refining tactics for the battles yet to come. Even small platoons could turn a Panther encounter into a controlled engagement, leveraging smoke, terrain, and timing to strike decisively while minimizing their own casualties. The psychological impact on both sides was clear. American crews, emboldened by repeated successes, moved with growing confidence, learning to exploit every shadow, dip, and misty corner. German Panther crews, frustrated by the inability to dominate the field despite superior firepower, faced constant uncertainty. Every foggy morning could conceal a Sherman advance. Every hedgerow could mask an ambush. The bocage, once a passive backdrop, had become an active participant in the battle, shaping decisions, movements, and outcomes. By the end of the month, the early experiences in the Normandy hedgerows had set a precedent. Sherman crews understood that victory in these conditions required more than equipment. It demanded observation, patience, and a willingness to innovate under pressure. The fog, smoke, hedgerows, and sunken lanes were no longer obstacles, they were tools. And with these tools, the Americans were turning what seemed like a disadvantage into a series of tactical triumphs. The battles in the mist taught a broader lesson about armored warfare. Adaptability, knowledge of terrain, and careful coordination could overcome technological disparity. Normandy had become the proving ground where these principles were tested and validated. Each engagement, each ambush, each carefully executed maneuver contributed to a growing body of experience that would guide operations throughout France and beyond. By mastering the environment and integrating every available asset, terrain, weather, artillery, and infantry, the American forces had demonstrated that tactical intelligence often outweighed raw firepower. Even as the fog lifted from the bocage fields, the echoes of these battles lingered. The Sherman crews had learned, adapted, and survived. They had taken lessons born of necessity and transformed them into a tactical doctrine that would carry them through the next phases of the Normandy campaign. The mist, the hedgerows, and the Panthers themselves had all become instructors in this harsh classroom of war. By the time the Allies would push further into France, the Shermans and their crews would be ready, not just to fight, but to dominate, using every tool at their disposal with lethal precision and measured strategy.